Ah, did your hair stand up on your arms hearing those three notes? Because mine sure did when I first saw this trailer late at night, because I live in Japan now, so it was late at night. It was around 11 o'clock. But boy oh boy, it has been confirmed, the rumors are true. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake has finally been confirmed by Nintendo at the recent Summer Nintendo Direct, and boy, I can't wait to talk about it. I don't really talk much about Zelda on my channel, but I will say I love talking about Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time because it is not only my favorite Legend of Zelda game, but it's also my favorite game of all time. I still remember playing it when I was a wee little lad, when I was a small little pound cake, and frankly, I still try to play that game every year, every single year, at least once. It has brought it gives me so much nostalgia. It has brought so many fond memories of just being a kid, just playing Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, just going through all the temples or through all the dungeons, and it just going into this world and experiencing a story that to me is still one of the best stories in all of video game history. The idea of going on this grand adventure, being the hero, collecting these medallions to, save the princess and defeat the evil Ganondorf, right? And then having this whole time mechanic where you go back in time to solve these puzzles so then you can access something in the future as an adult Link. Just everything about the story and the mechanics of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time just captivated me so much that it became my favorite game. And I still to this day haven't found a game that really put it over the top and above Ocarina of Time. So that's why I want to talk about it now and talk about Legend of Zelda because it's one of my favorite games. I know a lot about Ocarina of Time that I feel very confident in sharing. But I'm not going to go into the lore. I'm not going to go into just why I love Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. We're here to talk about the remake. We're here to talk about what we saw in the small trailer and such. And there wasn't a lot. I'm not gonna lie. All we saw was this huge tapestry that apparently has a artwork of the history of Hyrule. We see the Great Deku Tree. We see the Kokiri at the very top, and then of course we see during the trailer the boy with no fairy, aka Link, and a retelling of just basically the history of Hyrule. What's interesting is that the at least the English version of the trailer, they talk about, or the narrator at least talks as if this is well into the future. That he talks about like Hyrule being in ruins and all this stuff. And to me, my first instinct was, is this either going to be a retelling of the story through the perspective of someone who is in the future and is retelling the legend of, Link, or like this legend specifically, or is it just a thing just for specifically the trailer itself, which is going to be key for another point that I want to make. Because usually with trailers, they usually always have narration or something like that that doesn't necessarily always make it to the final cut, doesn't always make it to the final game. What it does is that they just put in this audio just to a description of what is happening in the trailer and what the trailer is trying to tell you what it is, And I think that's all it is. I do not think it's going to be something that actually someone narrates within the game. So I wouldn't take too much into exactly what the narrator says, because a lot of trailers do this. A lot of trailers always try to give you some like big narration about the history or about something to do with the lore of the game they're trying to present. For example, Final Fantasy VII Part 3, Final Fantasy VII Revelations literally did something similar, which was at the very beginning where they brought back the narrator when they first announced the remake was happening back in 2015. I do not think that dialogue is going to be in the game whatsoever. So I think it's a very similar situation in regards to this narrator who's speaking over the trailer. Then we move on to seeing the boy with no fairy, aka Link. And I've heard or seen a lot of takes on the graphics of this game, and I gotta say, a lot of people seem to never really know what they want. this isn't me trying to say that the people who are saying that the graphics look awful, that the graphics look weird, don't have like a right to claim that opinion. I just think that for the game that is Ocarina of Time, while it didn't really have that realism that we now see with a lot of a lot of games like Final Fantasy VII or like Metal Gear Solid, those have more realism than what they showed here for the preview for the remake of Ocarina of Time. It looks very similar to, if none of you know about this Majora's Mask fan animated movie made by Amber's Lab, the ones the company that made Kenna the Spirit game, and it reminds me similar to that. We don't necessarily see Link's eyes open, so we don't know exactly what kind of eyes he has, but the graphics to me don't look like hyper realistic that many people are trying to claim it is. And it just seems more of a stylistic choice that maybe not is actually going to be how the game looks. It looks fairly like a CGI trailer. And we all know that in video games, CGI trailers never, ever tend to come out and look the same way during the actual gameplay. So there's a little bit of, I guess, people can be a little worried, but Zelda has always been a game that, no matter what kind of stylistic choice they make in terms of the art, in terms of how the characters look, how the game looks, it always thrived on what the game was, what the game represented, the story, the combat, everything about it. Graphics was always going to be changing within every iteration of Zelda, aside from like sequels like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And to me, I never had an issue with how the games looked. And this is coming from someone who actually experienced the moment where we finally saw that tech demo, and we thought that's exactly what the new Legend of Zelda was going to be back in like 2000, I don't know, like 2001 or something. I totally don't remember what it was. And then we got Wind Waker. To me, I was stunned at the time, but at the same time, I'm like, I love Legend of Zelda. I'm going to play this game. And it turned out Wind Waker was by far one of the best Zelda games that they ever made. So to me, I don't really mind what kind of stylistic choice the devs at Nintendo are going to do with the Legend of Zelda, because at the end of the day, that's not what makes Legend of Zelda so amazing, right? It was never about the graphics. It was always about the story, the gameplay, just the lore. Everything about the Legend of Zelda came from what the storytelling was, what the gameplay was. All of that is what made Legend of Zelda amazing. Why it became such a huge franchise. Why Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the original, is revered as one of the greatest games of all time. It wasn't the graphics. It was the story, the gameplay, everything about it. I get it. We live now in a time where graphics carries so much more weight than it did back in like 1999. Because we were heading into the infancy of 3D gaming with Legend of Zelda, Mario 64. So what our view of what graphics of games should have looked like is nothing compared to what we view graphics today. And to me, that's always been something that was never at the top for me whenever I think about video games. Do I like looking at really pretty looking games? Of course I do. Everyone does, right? But at the same time, it's like, is the game fun? Is the gameplay fun? Is the gameplay, great? Because that's at the end of the day what keeps us invested in the game. The gameplay, the story, that's what keeps us invested. The game could look not as great as this. This could literally not be what the final cut of the game is. But we will still play because we understand what Legend of Zelda is. So it doesn't at all, or should at all, determine if we should play this game or anything. So that's why the graphics and how Link looks, which may seem a little weird, but at the same time, it's nothing that would really turn me off from the game. I get that a lot of people have now, or especially younger Zelda fans, are so used to like the Breath of the Wild, the Tears of the Kingdom style, the cell shaded, the anime type of look that those two games brought upon, as well as Echoes of Wisdom and such. But at the same time, Zelda has always played around with graphics, has switched graphics around with each iteration of the game to give you a new and brand new experience. And everyone will always question about it. But the moment they get the game, all of a sudden the game is enjoyable. All of a sudden the mood of gamers change because now guess what? Legend of Zelda was amazing because of the gameplay of the game itself, not how it looked. I get it. Some people care about that kind of stuff. I particularly don't. So I wouldn't, if you're on the fence, I would not worry because at the end of the day, the Legend of Zelda is going to look good. Legend of Zelda is going to look good. But it's the story, the gameplay, all of that is what makes Legend of Zelda a great franchise, a great game. So I would not put too much money on or be worried too much about the graphics because I think the gameplay is going to be so much better than what the graphics may lead people to, dislike about it. So now let's move on to what Link apparently is wearing. It definitely does not look, or it looks at all similar to the design of his tunic from the OG game. It looks like he has some sort of like armor, or it's not armor. It's more like some sort of like plates of some kind that he's wearing over his entire tunic, which apparently looks like it's grass woven, probably woven by Saria or maybe the Great Deku Tree himself. But his outfit is definitely different and definitely does not look like a tunic. I know people will be very nitpicky about that, but it's going to change. I think with the graphic limitation of the original N64 game, it's going to have some changes that likely some will say improve on and some will say not improve on. But it could also be that he does not get his actual tunic until later on, and this is just the default outfit, or somewhat looks like the default outfit, the woven grass of like the Kokiri. So I don't think that's going to be his actual tunic. I think he'll get that later, maybe after the Great Deku Tree and we defeat the monster inside the Great Deku Tree. That's when he gets the outfit. But it definitely does look different. Someone I think I saw on Twitter pointed out that it looked like it was grass woven, which was pretty cool. And then really his house, the bed he sleeps on changed as well. Like, it looks so interesting design wise that I actually do like it. I actually enjoyed it a lot than just, the PNG background and stuff like that, But it looks a little bit more ominous. It does look a little bit more darker, which when you really think about it, Ocarina of Time is a really dark game with everything that happens to Link. Like, this Link is literally one of the most tragic Links out of any Zelda game, so it would fit. It's definitely going to be interesting to see if they change the tone completely of Ocarina of Time or make it a little bit more darker, because after all, you have the bottom, the well, you have the Shadow Temple. There's a lot of dark stuff in Ocarina of Time that is going to freak people out. The goddamn giant ass zombie munching dude in the Shadow Temple, I don't remember names, I'm sorry about that, but that dude's probably gonna freak the fuck out of people. If, like, holy hell, I am not looking forward to the well and the Shadow Temple one bit. Holy cow. But I think they're going to go for a really much darker tone. There's going to be some humor. There's going to be some, lightheartedness in the game, because there was in the original game. Kind of like, King Zora moving his ass for like 4 goddamn minutes trying to get, out of the way for you to go save his daughter, or go, get the iron boots to save, to go to the water temple. Although I think that happens when you're a kid, so he moves out of the way before that. But like I said, I'm very interested to see exactly how the tone of this game works out, especially with how the original game was. The other thing I wanted to mention specifically about this trailer was the Triforce appearing on Link's hand, which technically it should not be there because if we go by the original plot of Ocarina of Time, the Triforce is still sealed away in the Sacred Realm. It's only when Ganondorf, or technically Link, opens the door of time and releases the Master Sword from the pedestal, Ganondorf enters and the Triforce gets separated. The Triforce goes into the three people chosen by it. Link's arm, or hand I should say, showing the Triforce have a lot of people upset because they think automatically that means that the story is changing. Because I think there's a huge fear, a huge nervousness that comes from remakes because of older remakes that have come beforehand, such as Resident Evil remakes, such as Final Fantasy VII Remake. And so many people have, I guess, been betrayed by these remakes into thinking that, oh, I wanted a one-to-one remake. What is this change of things? Why are they removing some stuff? Why are they adding some stuff that was never in the original? And all that stuff. And so many people have this fear that, oh, this is what remakes are. This is exactly what remakes are going to be. And now I'm scared that my favorite game of all time is going to change entirely. I get that fear. This is going to be one of the few games, because I love this game so much and I respect the original game so much, and you know it's my favorite game of all time, that I will be someone who normally doesn't heavily criticize remakes, will kind of probably criticize the remake a lot for this game. But it really depends. It really depends on what they do with the story. Now, in terms of the Triforce showing up on the hand, I do not think they are changing the story. I think this is specifically to showcase symbolism within the trailer, similar to how the graphics look. Not the graphics, but the narration at the very beginning. It's a trailer that is showcasing you a product, showcasing you what this product is, what this game is. And they're adding significant things to it that will not make the final cut, but it's used as symbolism. It's used as storytelling purposes for the trailer itself. It will not make the final cut. That's what I believe it. I could definitely be wrong, but at the same time, this has happened before. We see that, I believe, in Skyward Sword. I believe we also see it in Twilight Princess, where the Triforce does appear on the hand of, the chosen hero without him actually having the Triforce. The piece of the Triforce on him. It's a symbolism to showcase, oh, this is faith. This is the hero that is chosen by the goddess. Here's a symbol. Here we are symbolizing it by showing the Triforce on his hand. He doesn't have the Triforce at the moment. It's just being used as a symbolism. And it makes sense. It's not something that's awful, which I think a lot of people are afraid of. That because they're seeing this trailer, they automatically think everything in this trailer is exactly what's going to be in the game. That's not always true. And again, I think the fear of previous remakes and the fear of some of those remakes having different story additions or subtractions, that's what they fear about this remake project. Honestly, Nintendo doesn't do a lot of remakes. Most of the times they either do remasters or ports. This remake alongside the Star Fox remakes are probably the only two remakes they've done in probably the last few years. I don't even remember the last time they did a remake prior to this. It might have been a previous Legend of Zelda game. I forgot what the name of it, Link's Awakening. And maybe that's what maybe that was the last time before they announced these two remakes. But again, the remake of Link's Awakening was not awful. There was some disputes about the graphics, similar to what's happening here, but there's nothing wrong with it. And it's really, when you really think about it, the graphics is a tale as old as time, man. People will dislike the graphics of The Legend of Zelda, learn to love it, actually then love it, and then when the new style shows up, when the new art style shows up, people will dislike it immediately at the very beginning. And then they will love it again. It literally is happening with Breath of the Wild. People wanted that kind of style. People wanted that kind of cell shading style, and now they're getting Ocarina of Time, and now it's looking more. It's not really realistic, and I'm putting it in quotes. It's more of just giving you that same familiar feeling of the original Ocarina of Time, or even Twilight Princess. We have this more realistic feel, but it's not going to be hyper realistic. It's going to be similar to how Twilight Princess did it, to how Skyward Sword kind of did it. Skyward Sword was literally the in between the realism and what eventually became Breath of the Wild, right? So I again don't think we should worry about the graphics. I don't think we should worry about the narration or the Triforce as being something that really determines a huge change in how they're going to approach the remake project well, not the remake project. Let's not go Final Fantasy VII style and make Ocarina of Time 3 parts. Oh boy. But it's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to make huge changes. There will be changes. I do believe there will be changes, but not so drastically that just it completely destroys what people loved about the original Ocarina of Time. I get it. People are fearful. It's a remake. Remakes tend to have additions, subtractions, some changes, But that's the thing. Some changes, some of those additions can be a good thing. I think we all expect our favorite games to always be the same, always be 1-to-1, and are afraid of making any slight changes because of how much we revere the project. Listen, Ocarina of Time is my favorite game. I would dislike it heavily if there's some huge changes to the lore, to the gameplay, to the story. I would hate that if it's a drastic change. But if we're talking about just like a small addition or removing something that maybe was not as important to the story or to like side content or anything like that, I'll be okay with it because I understand what remakes are. And I understand that remakes are specifically done to bring in a new audience, right? It's not necessarily always for me or people who love the original game. It's a bonus for us. But this is to help people who have never played the original game or probably don't want to play the original game because they feel like the game hasn't aged well, which, by the way, I still think it does. But, they don't want to play because they're not, or they don't like how the game feels or how, like, the original game, looked like. This is in order to bring more people into the Legend of Zelda franchise and to honor and give back to the fandom, to the fans who love this game as well. Like I said, you can have, you could dislike the game, you could dislike the remake, you can dislike anything that they do with it that completely changes what you feel is important to the story. I get that, and you have, every right to have, criticism against that. But we should celebrate the idea that we're finally getting to see this game that we love so much in these newer graphics, in this high fidelity graphics, because we always imagine what this game would be like. I truly believe that this game is going to be amazing. It's going to look amazing. I will definitely critique and definitely point out stuff that they changed that I don't like. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to like it. At the same time, the original game will always be there. It will always be there. I get it. There's some question, some fear in regards to that kind of that statement now because of what Capcom said about the OG Resident Evil games, where like they did not know that so many people gave a shit about the OG and they wanted to focus on the remake project as the better experience. I get there's that fear. But Nintendo has never done any of that. Nintendo has never come out and said that, like, their remake of whatever game that they made is now essentially the better version and that you should ignore the original game. They never have ever stated that from my knowledge. But I get it. I do get it. I do get it. And I'm just going to enjoy this game. And I'm going to enjoy the remake because it is my favorite game of all time. I will critique it. I don't know if it will capture the same feeling I did back in when I first played the game. But you know what? I'm going to go into it and enjoy the experience for what it is. I may like it, I may not like it. But I think that's why I think a lot of people should give remakes chances. Because at the end of the day, you can dislike it. You can not like what they're doing. But giving it a chance is at least better than just immediately hating on it without even seeing what the gameplay is like. We still haven't seen any gameplay. And probably the reason why we haven't is because they probably are going to do like a direct that's going to focus specifically on the Ocarina of Time remake. And likely it's going to be the big November game that's going to be released this year. I guarantee you this game likely was being made like, I want to say for years now. And I would not be surprised, and I really hope this is the case, although I don't know what their partnership with Sony is. But if this is like an Ember Lab game being made by them, I mean, whoo, that Majora Mask fan animated movie that they did, oh my god, if they're the ones who are doing this, I would be okay with that. I do think this is Nintendo internal development team that's making this game, but there's no knowledge about that at all. We don't exactly know. But you know what? Hey, I am excited. Hopefully you guys are excited too. Those are my thoughts about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake. And let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay? Bye-bye!